For our next keynote presentation, I'm super excited. Jay Acunzo, good friend of mine. For those of you that don't know, we mentioned it before, the person that scores the highest in any session at a content marketing world gets a keynote the next year, and that was Jay Acunzo, who scored amazingly high last year in his keynote. He is doing some amazing things with his brand, Unthinkable. If you're not familiar with it, I want to make sure you check it out, and you definitely will after you hear his keynote this morning. So warm round of applause for Mr. Jay.
That's why we're here, because that is what our work creates. I mean, that is pretty awesome. But quick question about this work that we all do. On a scale of 0 to 10, who here aspires to be a 5? All right, nobody. That's predictable, right? Think about why. 5 is average, and nobody aspires to be average. But it's just so easy for our work as content marketers today to wind up average. Let's say, for example, we want to capitalize on a big trend. Something like influencer marketing. That's huge right now, right? Well, we can go to YouTube and in under a second pull up hundreds of thousands of videos telling us what we need to do. In this information age that we live in, if we have an intent to do anything in our work, we can immediately find the answer. Maybe, for example, we're trying to grow our Twitter followers. Well, when should we be sending those tweets? I'm sure somebody here knows the answer. I didn't. So I Googled it. And in under a second, again, I got 35 million results. And I had to read 0, because the answer apparently is at the top. Apparently, we're supposed to tweet at 3 p.m. All right. Or maybe it's not time for our companies to tweet right now. No, maybe it's time for us to blog. Well, we're in luck, because there are websites out there called blog title generators. Have you heard about these things? You put in a bunch of keywords, and out comes an endless list of exactly what you're supposed to write. It's like our brains are broken. And this guy even markets to us that way. He knows. There are dozens of these things, by the way. There are even blog posts about blog post generators, yeah. So this world of stories that we live in is flooding with advice. Advice that we can access in an instant. But so can everybody else. And guess what happens when I tell a room full of marketers that the best time to tweet is 3 p.m.? That is no longer the best time to tweet. The point is this. We all face a big, big problem as content marketers today. It has never been easier to be average. If we don't have an idea or an answer, we can find and follow everyone else's. And so can everyone else. And so too much of our work copies. It blends in, or it fades away in the minds of our audience. So while it's never been easier to be average, the question becomes, what does it take to be exceptional? Well, what we used to do before the information age was we'd have to find our own path forward. We'd have to consider a bunch of possibilities and pick the one that just kind of felt right or worked for us. And that could take a lot more time than it does today. But today, we're losing something. Because if we want to do anything as content marketers today, do we think critically? Do we consider and experiment with all these exciting new possibilities we came up with? Nah, we just Google it. And so how can we be exceptional in a world full of so much average content? We have to get back something that we're losing. It's not the ability to follow someone else's answers, it's the willingness to find our own. It's the willingness to trust our intuition. But trusting your intuition feels kind of like a leap. It doesn't feel as practically useful as it needs to feel. Albert Einstein called it a feeling. He said it's a feeling for the order lying behind the appearance of something. Malcolm Gladwell called it rapid cognition or snap judgments. And in actual research psychology, you have guys like Gary Klein and Gerd Gigerenzer, and they call it subconscious reasoning. It's a concept known as priming in the psychology world. Stuff that you experienced before but hardly noticed that actually does influence how you make decisions. In none of these cases does your own intuition come across as powerful or as useful, not when compared with the expert advice. But then we look at the root of the word itself. The root of the word intuition comes from the Latin intuere, which means knowledge from within. So intuition, then, is the ability to find knowledge from within. In a world overflowing with copycat thinking and expert advice, intuition is the process of thinking for yourself. And if that feels like a leap, how can we make it? How can we cross this chasm? We build a bridge. Not by following someone else's blueprint for us, but by asking the right series of questions to pull out our answers from within. Here's the deal. This is where we spend most of our time in content marketing today, doing average work, commodity work, best practices easily found, easily copied by everybody else. So the biggest opportunity facing our careers and companies is to spend more time thinking for ourselves. If we really don't aspire to be average, we have got to stop doing average work. We have got to stop obsessing over everybody else's right answers for us and instead ask ourselves the right questions. Mike Brown used to obsess over everyone else's answers for him. But when he switched his approach, things got better. Mike was running a coffee business in his hometown of Saratoga Springs, New York. And it was going terribly. So terribly that he had to sell all of his belongings, he had to sell his house, he had to sell his car, and he had to move back in with his mother. And so he consulted a bunch of experts to see what he was doing wrong. And they all pointed to the same fatal flaw facing his business. You see, Mike was roasting the wrong type of coffee bean. Now, generally speaking, there are two common types of coffee today, Arabica and Robusta. Arabica coffee makes coffee that looks like this. And it's served in places that look like that, to people who look something like this guy. By the way, you have two choices. You can go all glove or no glove. There is no halfway. But regardless, Arabica is delicious. On the other hand, the stuff that Mike was roasting, Robusta beans, not so much. So according to these experts, there is a right and a wrong bean to roast, and Mike was roasting the wrong one, Robusta beans. One day, a customer, one of his few, came into the shop, a truck driver, and he said, "Mike, what's the strongest cup of coffee you can make?" And Mike did his best, and he sent the guy on his way. But then he thought, you know, I've actually heard that request several times before, always from the same type of customer, truck drivers, construction workers, entrepreneurs, hard-charging, hard-working individuals. And he realized, I got plenty of time on my hands. Why don't I surprise that group of people? I'll create the world's strongest coffee. And he tinkered, and he tested, and he roasted, and he did indeed create the most potent blend of coffee known to man, and he called it Death Wish coffee. Today, Death Wish is a thriving e-commerce brand. They sell millions of this stuff all over the world. They have hundreds of thousands of passionate fans on social, fans who see themselves reflected in the content. And these passionate fans helped Death Wish win a contest last year run by Intuit. 15,000 small businesses entered, and Death Wish came out on top. And the grand prize was a free Super Bowl ad on TV. And this is what they chose to run.
The day of reckoning is upon us! My brothers, what is life, if not to die a glorious death? Fear not, for tonight we drink in the halls of Valhalla! Roar! Awaken and welcome death!
Death Wish Coffee, fiercely caffeinated.
Yeah, give it up for Mike and Death Wish, yeah. All right. And Mike and Death Wish, by the way, got all of these great results by roasting Robusta coffee beans. What? That's not supposed to happen. He didn't listen to the experts. He trusted his intuition, and he did something exceptional. Why did this work? Well, the first thing he did so well was articulate his aspiration. He said, I'll create the world's strongest coffee. And right away, he began to make better decisions. And it was a great decision to keep roasting Robusta beans, because when roasted, Robusta yields more caffeine than the other stuff. And that's pretty darn useful if your aspiration is to create the world's strongest coffee. So yeah, from the outside looking in, it's insanity what Mike chose to do, until you understand his aspiration, his context. You see, Mike knows When we question conventional thinking using our own context, we make better decisions faster. If we can articulate what we're trying to do, what we aspire to do, we stop looking at all those experts as sources of answers and vet them as possibilities. So ask yourself, in a world full of content marketing best practices, what are the right practices for us? What is our Robusta coffee bean? The other thing that Mike did so incredibly well was move his business from learning through data to learning through insight. His data was simple. Customers wanted stronger coffee. And it's really easy to stop there and assume that that's also your insight. But then Mike wondered, why? Well, they want more caffeine, obviously. Okay, why? Well, they want more energy during their day, of course. That's what caffeine is for. Okay, why? Let's see. They're truck drivers. They're construction workers. They're entrepreneurs. They're hard-charging, hard-working individuals. Mike's customers don't want stronger coffee. They don't want more caffeine. They don't even want more energy. Mike Brown's customers want the ability to work themselves to death. And so that is exactly what he sells. When you operate like this, you move your content from a commodity to the exception. Because plenty of coffee brands sell stronger coffee. Plenty sell more caffeine, and plenty sell more energy. But Mike and Deathwish are the only ones who sell the ability to work yourself to death. And his customers love them for it. They post all over social media with pictures of the product. By the way, this gentleman in the glasses, that's on Instagram. Does he look like a millennial to you? No? Okay. People even get tattoos of the logo. They love this brand so much. And Mike gives them discounts for life because Mike understands when we pay more attention to the customer than the industry, the customer pays more attention to us. Ask yourself, are we spending more time to learn about content marketing or our customers? What is our customers' death wish? Metaphorically. The last thing that Mike did so well was switch from trying to get end results to learning how to get end results. In other words, he decided to test. And that test came with a set of constraints, which he fully embraced. And all he wanted to see wasn't final sales, no, it was signal that he could get more sales, signs he was on the right path. He created one product, and once he got a visceral reaction, a small number of people reacting in a big way, he leaned in. He created tons of content, blog posts, videos, a podcast, and now they sell more products to more people than ever before. Because Mike knows, when we make the process the point instead of the end results, we get better end results. It is so much more powerful that we understand how to find answers than that we know the answer, because the answer will change. But if we can throw ourselves into any scenario in this ever-changing world of ours and know how to figure it out, we are unstoppable. Ask yourself, do we want some expert to just hand us the answer, or do we find our answers from within? In other words, do we trust our intuition? I've always felt really grateful that I've worked for companies that actually promote and love creative thinking. Companies like Google and ESPN, Hubspot, and the venture capital firm NextView. But through all of that, I still had the same troubling reaction to my own intuition. Maybe you've gone through something similar. Here's what happens every time. An idea will strike, and it's like it came out of nowhere. I have no idea where I came up with this. But I still feel it like so confidently about it and see it so clearly that I just blurt it out to everybody else. I'm like, okay, you guys, I got it. Don't worry, I got it. We're going to do this and that and that and that, and it'll be awesome. Don't worry, yes, it's going to work. And they say, are you sure? And with total confidence, I say, yeah. And then they ask, can you explain why? No. It just feels right. And that's a terrible way to explain yourself. But I think the reason we struggle to explain this intuition stuff is that it happens too fast. It's clearly you doing the thinking, but your process was a blur. On the other hand, conventional thinking, that's more like a set of instructions. That's a straight line. And straight lines are really easy to understand. Does anybody remember how to calculate the slope of a straight line? Very simple. Rise over run. That's it. The up versus the out. All you need are 2 points anywhere on the line, and you can very clearly see where it came from and where it leads you. But when you think for yourself, when you use your intuition, you operate like an exponential curve. And the more you use that intuition, the more you think creatively, the faster you seem to go until you feel like you did something instantly. Does anybody remember how to calculate exponential curves? Okay, we don't need 2 points anywhere on the line. No. We need a PhD in math and a bottle of bourbon. Stat, right? That guy knows. We'll meet later. So, intuition is you, right? But maybe this is why we chalk it up to some muse, some external source, because we can't easily calculate where it came from or where it leads us. Intuition is you pulling out your knowledge from within really quickly. It's not some mystical muse. In other words, your intuition is like your brain running an exponential equation. So it's your intent to do something powered by the number of possibilities that you've questioned. And this is incredibly powerful in this era we live in, because intuition isn't something you have to rely on externally. It's just you. It's you thinking creatively and for yourself. Intuition isn't some inspiration. It's not some gift that you were given at birth. Your intuition is the ability to succeed at higher speed. And who doesn't want that skill? In the information age, this works in our total advantage because we've never had access to more possibilities. That's the easy part. And so the key then is in knowing what questions we should ask of all that information. So let's take a look at 3 different types of questions that we can ask to do better work. Questions about you, questions about your audience, and questions about your resources. Let's start with questions about you. Imagine that you are Lisa Schneider, the Chief Digital Officer at Merriam-Webster's Dictionary, and your job is to make the dictionary cool in the digital age. That's a bit like trying to get grandma to dance like Beyonce, but that's your job. And marketers on the team are not helping you whatsoever. Every day, the Merriam-Webster Twitter account would automate their process and tweet the same boring stuff every single day. The morning was a word of the day, and the evening a quiz, over and over again. It was boring, it was bland, it was predictable. But internally, the team wasn't that way at all. Internally, the team was witty and warm and wonderful. Internally, the Merriam-Webster marketing team would share stuff with each other like this. The past, present, and future walked into a bar. It was tense. Or stuff like this. Did you hear about the kidnapping at school? Everything's fine. He woke up. Let it arrive. Let it arrive. There we go. I know it's early. And Lisa's like, enough is enough, guys. Let's show the world how fun and relevant we really are. That is a great aspirational anchor. What most leaders in content marketing do is they don't anchor us to anything aspirational enough. We don't realize our full potential. We're going to fix Twitter. What do we say? Let's grow our followers, this %. You're not inspiring anybody. Or how about this? Let's go viral. Oh, can we not? It's 2017. Hashtag no. But Lisa said, no, us, together as a team, let's show the world how fun and relevant we really are. And their first chance to do so was Memorial Day weekend last year. Now, for the Americans in the room, the Merriam-Webster team was debating a crucial question if you're going to celebrate Memorial Day correctly. They were debating whether or not the hot dog is a sandwich. Crucial. But Lisa's like, this is hilarious. We need to put this out into the world. And so the Memorial Day weekend approached, and they tweeted this: have a great Memorial Day weekend. The hot dog is a sandwich. And the internet lost its mind. People were like, oh, how could you? I trusted you. You've gone too far. Or this person pouring out her soul on Twitter, and yay, for the hot dog is not a sandwich, for the meat 'tis exposed to the heavens, not blanketed by bread. This is my decree. The brand took a stance, and they took a stance right back. The brand even got press coverage from that tweet. And they were like, this is amazing. Where else can we put this feeling? No one has cared this much about our marketing ever. I know. In addition to the word of the day, let's do emoji threads, playful representations of similar sounding words. Their personality was unleashed onto the world. They became sarcastic and bombastic and witty and warm. Everything they were in person, they became in their marketing. And the world took notice. Their follower count exploded. They have over 580,000 followers on Twitter now. Year over year, they grew their social media impressions 6,000%, and their press coverage 7,000%. Because who was writing about a dictionary in the press? Well, today, everybody. BuzzFeed, The Washington Post, The New York Times, Vice, Vox, Vogue. You guys, the dictionary is literally in vogue. Lisa, I would say mission accomplished, my friend. And it all came back to that aspirational anchor. An aspiration in our work combines two powerful things: our intent for the future and some kind of hunger we have today, some dissatisfaction with our work. For Lisa, she knew the team needs to be part of the conversation. And that hunger made it aspirational enough to succeed. Our voice is too bland. We're like this internally, we're like that externally. And out came that great aspirational anchor. And that statement has power because these aspirations create our own unique context through which we vet advice. There is so much advice out there. And if we can set up a filter to make sense of it, then some things get through and some things don't. In Lisa's case, the personality made it all the way through. Because aspirational anchors are personal. They give us a reason to use who we are in our work. And who we are right here in this room is the one thing our competitors can't access. You are the company's unfair advantage. Are you using it? Lisa admitted this on my show. She said, look, this isn't manufactured. We didn't have some all hands about this. This is just who we are. And it all came back to her willingness to ask two questions about her and her team. What is your aspirational anchor? And why you? Why you, the person or the team, to do it? Questions that we should ask ourselves more often. And if we can answer them, we're ready to ask the right questions about our audience. And nobody knows their audience more than Kathy DeMeza. Kathy is a conservationist who works for Rare.org, a global organization, and Kathy here is based in the Philippines, specifically in Tinanbach on the northern shore. Now, this region was hit by a terrible problem a few years ago: overfishing. Too many fishermen were catching too many fish, and the population of fish couldn't keep up. In fact, daily fishermen's catch came back as a negative 82% year over year. So they had to fix this problem. They had to save the species of fish and the livelihood of these people. And so what the average conservationist does in Kathy's shoes is they rely on a concept from economics. It's called Homo economicus, the rational human. This says that people are rational and self-interested creatures. So if you want them to act, if you want to change their behavior, you better provide the right incentives and punishments, carrots and sticks. That is what the average conservationist knows about people. But Kathy and Rare knew something different. Here's what Kathy and Rare knew.
Think of your brain as a human rider atop an elephant. The rider represents the rational system. That's the part of us that plans and problem solves. The rider might do some analyzing and decide, hey, I want to go that way. But it's the elephant, representing the emotional system, that provides the power for the journey.
So in other words, if you're going to change people's behavior, you need to target the elephant, the emotional side of people, because that's what carries all the weight. By the way, Rare has over 5 hours of video just about their audience. They don't mention themselves once. How long could you talk about your audience before you have to mention yourself? Is it 5 hours? Is it 5 minutes? By obsessing over their audience, Kathy and Rare realized something powerful. People aren't rational, self-interested creatures. People are emotional. That is a great first principle insight. First principle insights are basic but hard to reach truths about your audience. You have to cut through a ton of conventional thinking. You have to ask why enough times to reach the truth facing your audience. But if you can reach that insight, you can inform all of your content through that reality. And Kathy's content was informed with a simple but powerful realization. Don't demand action, inspire it. People are emotional. Don't demand action, inspire it. I wish more content marketing acted like that, don't you? So to inspire action from her audience, Kathy created a pride campaign. It began with a slogan, "This is ours, this home, we're proud to live here." And she created a mascot to symbolize that pride, Agaton, the red grouper. And this grouper went offline into all these events they created. They created t-shirts and flyers, blog posts and videos, even original music. And just by associating the fish, the thing she was trying to save, not with a problem, but with an emotion, that pride, people responded. They changed their behavior. They agreed to set up a sanctuary in the ocean and stop fishing in this region. And the fish population started to come back by 48%. 60% of local fishermen are now reporting larger daily catches. And you can find pride campaigns from Rare cropping up all over the world, 56 different locations. They've even raised $20 million to start investing that in Southeast Asian fishing villages struggling with overfishing. And from the outside looking in, it's easy to say, well, they got the gift. Kathy is super creative, they're innovative, they have the right culture, team, or industry. But Kathy would say, no, hold on a second. First principle insights make creativity seem logical instead of lofty. She would be the first to tell you that she's not creative or innovative. She's like, hold on, this is what everybody else sees in my industry. I just see the full picture. I'm starting in a more fundamental place than everybody, and I'm taking a logical route forward from where I start. And then I'm using my fans to inform whether or not this is the right path, because the path is new. It's counter the convention. You see, content informed by first principle insights generates an emotional response. Who cares how many followers and subscribers and leads we have if nobody on the other end cares? If you can't get an emotional, visceral reaction in this hyperactive world? We're so focused on reach, we should focus on resonance. And when you focus on resonance, you realize what content marketing is all about. Content marketing is about inspiring your true believers, not coercing the skeptics. Kathy realized this because she addressed that first principle insight facing her audience. More of us in this industry need to spend time and obsess over triggering this instead of triggering that. Kathy got incredible results because she asked the right two questions about her audience. What is your first principle insight? And because you address that insight, who are your true believers, that passionate response you get from your audience? And if we can answer these questions, we're ready to ask the final two questions about our resources. This is the section I like to call, I'm not Red Bull. Guess who else isn't Red Bull? Camille Ricketts. She's the head of content and marketing at First Round Capital. First Round is one of the most prestigious venture capital firms on the planet. They've invested in some transformative startups that are now huge today. And so the stakes were really high with whatever Camille launches. And what she wanted to launch was a blog to match that prestige. And worse than the stakes being high, the competition was fierce. So fierce that this website created the periodic table of venture capital blogs. It lists 89 competitors of Camille's. And so she realized, look, if I'm going to launch now, I got to cut through this clutter. I got to be creative and new. Now, what the average content marketer pictures when they hear those phrases, creative and new, is the wide open field. Total creative freedom. You're telling me to be creative and new? All right, stand back, people. I need more budget. I need more time. I need more team. We're going to hire 17 agencies. We're going to spray this on every social network known to man. We're going to write this on the sky. But that's not what Camille did. She didn't look for the field. She looked for the box. In fact, she put herself in that box. She's like, look, I have a set of constraints. That's my reality. I'm going to launch a new blog. Cool. For startup CEOs. Great. In a crowded niche. Uh-oh. With zero budget. No. And zero writers. Are you kidding me? In the next 30 days, what am I going to do? Well, what Camille did was she started attending local startup events in San Francisco, looking for the most popular speeches, and she transcribed those onto the blog. Like this one by Joe Gebbia, the co-founder of Airbnb. And all she was hunting for was that signal she was on the right path. And once she got that, she used it as a case study to get more resources. And they moved from transcriptions to original reporting, long-form essays. They hired a group of writers. And once that worked, she used that as a case study to get more resources. And now they do community groups online that you can access. And then they use that as a case study to get more resources. And now she creates original research and even proprietary technology to help her audience grow and learn. Constrained project by constrained project, little by little, Camille created something big. The First Round Review, the most powerful startup publication on the planet today. The First Round Review has been called the Harvard Business Review for startups. It's read by hundreds of thousands of tech entrepreneurs and investors, and it's subscribed to by hundreds of thousands more. And it all happened not because she got permission to do this, but because she realized I have a set of constraints that I have to embrace. Because when you need to be creative, constraints are your strengths. Research about idea generation tells us that if we want more ideas or better ideas, both together, quantity and quality, constraints help us deliver. Creative freedom doesn't work. Creative freedom doesn't even exist. Because if we had total creative freedom to write whatever we want, what do we automatically do? We start installing our own constraints to make sense of the project. Constraints also help us scale our content in the right direction based on results, not the trend. Who cares what the expert is saying if it doesn't work for you? Camille admitted that she had to switch her approach to make this process work. On my show, she said this: "My goal wasn't to succeed quickly, my goal was to learn quickly." And it all came back to those two powerful questions that she was willing to ask. What are my constraints? I have to face it, I'm not Red Bull. And how can I expand? I still want to think big, but I got to start small. Trusting your intuition is not a leap. It's a series of questions that we can ask ourselves to pull out our answers from within. And the more we do this, the faster we'll go, like an exponential curve. Look, as content marketers today, we work and live in the information age. But the information age has a dark side: advice overload. It makes it just so easy to do commodity stuff. The tips and tricks, the cheats and hacks, the gurus and the get-rich-quick schemes. Is that really what we got into content marketing for? Really? Because every time we ask an expert to hand us an answer on a silver platter, it's like we're saying, hey, I don't matter, you tell me. And I don't know about you, but I want it to matter in my career. I got into content marketing to create stuff I'm proud of and that others love too. But instead, what do? We obsess over gaming systems. We agonize over squeezing every last drop of value out of annoyed audiences using tired tactics. We want to know the exact right time to tweet instead of why we're on Twitter at all. We want to know how to generate subscribers instead of building something worth subscribing to. We want the perfect answer, the one simple secret. And fine, I'm on a stage right now, so here's my secret. The only real secret is that there are no secrets. There's only hard work done with the right intent. And 30 minutes ago, we all said we have the right intent. We said we don't aspire to be average. So now we have to prove it. We have got to stop doing commodity work. We have to stop obsessing over everyone else's right answers for us and instead ask ourselves the right questions. So, what is our aspirational anchor? Let's show the world how exceptional content marketers can really be. Why us? Because nowhere will you find a group as powerful or as passionate as us. What is our first principle insight? Audiences are craving better work than we've produced before. Let's give it to them. Who are your true believers? Look around you. Everybody's right here to support you, thousands of us strong. What are our constraints? No one else thinks we can do it. We are just marketers. We could never create anything worthy of their time or their attention. I say we prove them wrong. And how can we expand? However the hell we want to. Because in a world overrun by copycat thinking, we do the most powerful thing of all. We think for ourselves. We trust our intuition. The clicks and views, the subscribers and leads, these are just byproducts. They're signs that we do the thing well. And the thing we do can no longer be mediocre. So let's expect better right now. Let's market better right now. Let's create better content right now. It has never been easier to be average. So let's be something else. Be the exception. Thank you very much.